The dense forest stretched endlessly, its towering trees swaying gently in the cool evening breeze. The ground was damp from the afternoon rain, and the fading sunlight cast long shadows between the trunks. Among the rustling leaves and the distant calls of birds, footsteps echoed, a slow, cautious march of a weary traveler. Liam, a young soldier, moved carefully through the wilderness, his uniform tattered and covered in dirt. His boots, once polished and sturdy, were now soaked with mud from the endless journey. He had been separated from his unit days ago, after an ambush had scattered them across unfamiliar terrain. Now, lost in the vastness of the wild, he relied on his instincts to survive. As he pressed forward, scanning for shelter before nightfall, a faint sound reached his ears. It was not the whisper of the wind or the rustling of leaves, it was softer, weaker. A whimper. Liam stopped in his tracks, his tired body suddenly alert. His hand instinctively moved to the knife at his belt as he scanned the forest floor. The sound came again, fragile and pleading. He followed it, stepping over twisted roots and ducking under low branches, until he spotted something near the base of an old oak tree. A small bear cub lay curled up on the ground, its fur damp and matted. Its tiny frame trembled, and its breathing was shallow. The cub looked too young to be alone. No mother, no siblings, just a frail creature left to the mercy of the wild. Liam knelt beside the cub, his fingers grazing the soft fur. The little bear flinched, but was too weak to resist. He looked around, searching for any sign of its mother. There was none. Perhaps she had fallen prey to hunters, or maybe she had abandoned it, sensing that it wouldn't survive. The soldier sighed. He was no stranger to loss, but something about this helpless creature stirred something deep within him. He knew he shouldn't interfere. Wild animals belonged in the wild. And yet, looking into the cub's frightened eyes, he couldn't walk away. With careful hands, Liam removed his jacket and wrapped the shivering cub inside. It let out a soft whimper, but didn't struggle. He lifted it against his chest, feeling the tiny heartbeat against his own. The warmth of his body seemed to soothe the cub, and for the first time since he had found it, it stopped trembling. Night was falling fast. Liam found shelter beneath a rocky outcrop, where the ground was dry and the wind couldn't reach them. He set the cub down gently on his lap and rummaged through his supplies. His rations were low, just enough for a few more days, but he tore off a small piece of his dried bread, soaking it in water before offering it to the cub. At first, the little bear was hesitant, its nose twitching as it sniffed the offering. Then hunger won over fear, and it took a small bite. Liam smiled as it chewed slowly, its tiny paws gripping his fingers for support. "You've got some fight in you, huh?" Liam murmured, brushing a hand over the cub's head. "I guess I'll call you Theo." The cub blinked up at him, as if accepting the name. Days turned into weeks, and as Liam continued his journey, Theo became his shadow. The cub followed him through dense woods, clumsily stumbling over roots, but determined to keep up. It nuzzled against his side at night, seeking warmth, and played with the loose straps of his gear when bored. Liam spoke to Theo as though he could understand. He told him stories about home, about the fields where he used to run as a child, about his younger brother who would have loved to see a real bear up close. He even talked about the war, the things he had seen, the things he wished he could forget. Theo, of course, never replied, but he listened, always watching with those curious, knowing eyes. As the weeks passed, Theo grew stronger. His small, fragile frame filled out, and his once wobbly steps became more confident. He climbed over fallen logs, splashed through streams, and even tried to mimic Liam's movements, tilting his head whenever the soldier stopped to observe something. But something else was changing too. Theo was no longer a cub. He was growing, fast. His playful bites were sharper. His once small paws now left deep imprints in the soil. His instincts were awakening, the call of the wild tugging at him like an invisible thread. Liam noticed it. The way Theo would stop and stare into the forest for long moments, ears perked, nose twitching. He wasn't just looking anymore. He was listening to something Liam couldn't hear. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Theo wasn't meant to stay with him. He never was. One morning, Liam woke to find Theo sitting at the edge of their camp, gazing into the misty forest. The soldier approached, resting a hand on the bear's thickening fur. "You feel it, don't you?" Liam said quietly. "You know where you belong." Theo turned his head, pressing his nose against Liam's arm in a slow, deliberate movement. Liam swallowed the lump in his throat. That afternoon, he led Theo to a valley where the forest stretched as far as the eye could see. The trees were taller here, the scent of fresh earth and wild animals thick in the air. "This is your home now," Liam said, kneeling beside Theo. "You're strong enough. You don't need me anymore." Theo let out a deep, low rumble, a sound that was neither a growl nor a whimper, but something in between, a sound of understanding. Liam reached out, brushing his fingers through Theo's fur one last time. "Go on, buddy." Theo hesitated, his dark eyes locked onto Liam's as if memorizing his face. Then, slowly, he turned and walked into the forest. Liam stood there for a long time, watching until the last trace of his friend disappeared into the trees. The days that followed felt empty. No more rustling beside him at night, no more playful nudges or clumsy paws knocking over his gear. The silence felt heavier now, but he never regretted his decision. Years passed. Liam returned home when the war finally ended. He carried many memories, some painful, some bittersweet. But there was one that remained closer to his heart than any other, the memory of a small bear cub, rescued from the depths of the forest, who had become his most unexpected friend. One winter evening, Liam took a long walk through the mountains near his home. Snow blanketed the trees, and his boots crunched against the frozen ground. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. As he walked along a narrow trail, a strange feeling settled over him. A feeling he couldn't quite explain. Then a rustling in the trees. Liam turned, his breath hitching. Standing just beyond the clearing, half hidden in the shadows of the forest, was a massive bear. Its thick fur was dusted with snow, its powerful frame still and silent. But its eyes, those deep, dark eyes, were familiar. Liam didn't move. He didn't need to. The bear let out a low,